Do you want to understand better what's driving your emotional eating? To figure out what are the emotions that are pushing you towards food? Very often people come to me and they say, I'm sure that I'm emotionally eating because it ticks all the boxes for what that looks like, but I don't actually know what the emotions are that are pushing me that way. In this mini series on YouTube, I'm exploring the different emotions that can most often underlie emotional eating so that you can figure out what your particular triggers are and also have some good ideas about what you can do to change things, to shift the emotions so that you can make different choices moving forward. In this video, which is the fourth part of this series, I'm going to look at boredom. And that's something which people quite often say, oh, I was just eating because I was bored. I had nothing better to do, so I reached for food. And yet I would encourage you to perhaps dig a little deeper. So let's dive into the three different things that I believe underlie that feeling of eating because you're bored. The first of these emotions that often masquerades as boredom is in fact loneliness. One part of that is that a growing percentage of the population live alone, which may mean that you spend a lot of time alone. And there are people who do like that, and there may be others for whom that isn't really their first choice, it's just how things end up. It's also true that even when we're with others, we may feel lonely, perhaps because there is a lack of rapport, a lack of connection, perhaps because we're so busy working that we don't actually spend time socializing. There can be quite a number of reasons why that boredom can be more about not having anyone to do something with rather than not having anything to do. Another aspect of this may be that our lives just don't mesh with the people around us. So, for example, you may not have time when other people have time for whatever reason, either because of shift work or because of family, whatever the situation may be, that gets in between you and being able to socialize with people. It could also be that you've moved and your friends are in a different time zone. Whatever the situation is, it can make it feel quite lonely when you think that you want to do something, but there's no one around to do it with. Another element that can be here is a question of self-esteem. People often say how difficult it is to make new friends when they're older, and if other people have gone off and gotten into couples, and perhaps you did too, and then you split up for whatever reason, you now have a whole friendship group who are all in couples and you're not, or that you're trying to do the dating thing, and that's not really about friendships, which are also important. So it's prioritizing how you spend your social time, and that can end up with you feeling like you're quite alone a lot of the time. For all these reasons, it can be important to find ways to step out of this feeling of isolation. One solution, therefore, is actually just to connect with people. And it might be that because of your situation, it could be helpful to connect with people via the internet or on the telephone. Yes, it's not exactly the same as actually meeting in person, and yet it is still a way that you can make a real human connection with somebody. Equally, there are quite a few situations where, if perhaps you don't have time or the possibility to connect with an actual friend, somebody you know, you might find that it is still more soothing to have something on YouTube which feels like a friend speaking with you, whether that's an ASMR video or someone talking about something that you are interested in, almost as though the two of you are having a discussion. So these are some perhaps real ways that you can feel a little bit more connected and get a little bit more engaged with something that you might then be able to share with someone else. Another really great solution to loneliness is to use tapping on it. tapping has been shown, as I've said before, to reduce your cortisol levels, one of the primary stress hormones, so that when you tap, you can feel calmer and you get into a more creative state of mind so that you are more able to think of things that you could do either to help with the loneliness or simply to act on that boredom side of things. And that tapping might look like actually acknowledging these feelings of loneliness so that you can start to let them go. Another solution that I find very helpful is to think about music. And it might be about making music yourself, it might be about listening to music, it might be about finding some music that makes you want to dance. One reason why music is so good is because it activates your polyvagal nerve. And this is one which can put you into fight and flight, but it can equally put you into a state of openness to connection with others. And music is very powerful and very able to do that. So it puts you into a state where you feel more connected and more able to connect. And that is partly because the polyvagal nerve wraps around the sort of external part of the ear so that it's stimulated by that. If you were to sing or use chanting, the polyvagal nerve also inserts in the lungs, so it will sense when you are using your lungs in that way. That's one of the reasons why chanting and singing, the vibration that they create within the body, is actually very good for improving your mood. And a fourth potential solution is to use different forms of breathing. As I just mentioned, the polyvagal nerve inserts through the lungs. And so when you do some kind of calming breath, you also activate that polyvagal nerve to increase your sense of connection, improve your mood. The second emotion that I often find masquerading as procrastination, when you have things that you could do, but you keep putting them off for some reason, and then you're left not doing anything. One of the primary reasons that can underlie procrastination is perfectionism, a feeling of, I don't want to get it wrong, so I won't even start. When you have very high expectations of yourself, it's very hard to fulfill those. One solution to this is to try and make things fun, to give yourself permission to fail, to simply do whatever it is without any expectations. I know that this can be a very hard one, and yet it can be very positive. One of the things, once again, that helps with this is, for example, a gentle, soothing touch, which will boost your delta waves in your brain. This is a brain state which is both calm and creative, so that you can tap into that playfulness and say, okay, I'm just going to do something because it's fun. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't even have to be good. I'm just doing it anyway. Another possibility is to tap on the parts of yourself. There's the part that wants everything to be perfect, and there's the part that wants to actually be doing something fun. So that would be another way of approaching this using tapping. Another somewhat deeper approach to this is to explore the beliefs that underlie your sense that you have to be perfect in what you do. And you could do some havening to release those beliefs, to find the memories of when those thoughts started, and to soften them, to release them, to clear them away. This can be very powerful work that really changes how you feel about yourself and about the things that you do. So I highly recommend giving it a go. Another part of this procrastination puzzle can be a feeling of overwhelm when there's just too much to do and so you don't even make a start, or you're not sure where you should begin. One solution for this is to think about chunking the task down. So making it into smaller parts, and then you can just take that first step. You can really break it up into very small pieces. Every little thing that you do is something and is worthwhile. And it will start to get you over that hump, because once you start to get a little bit of momentum, it's much easier to carry on. One thing then would be to use tapping, for example, to perhaps say, there is this task and it feels so big. I can chunk it down. I can think about what one small step would be. What could I do first? What would be the very beginning part of this? And once again, holding it lightly, not taking it too seriously, can help you to take a first step. And if it turns out that wasn't the right first step, well, that doesn't really matter. At least you have taken a step. And once again, that momentum can really pull you forward in a way that can be very positive and will definitely get you out of the slump of procrastination and that feeling of, oh, I have nothing to do. A further solution for procrastination is to use creative visualization, as they do, for example, in sports psychology, to imagine achieving your goal. And you don't need to know how you're going to get there, to just close your eyes and picture what will it look like? What will it feel like when you've achieved that goal? What would you see and hear? What would you feel? How would you feel? Tapping into that, picturing it in your mind as clearly as you can, in whatever way makes sense to you, can be a very strong motivator to draw you towards that outcome and to get you moving. In terms of breathing exercises, a great one here is coherent breathing, which is where you breathe in on the same count as you breathe out. This balances your autonomic nervous system between the parasympathetic and the sympathetic so that it brings you into a state that is both calm and also creative, in the same way that havening boosts your delta waves, which is also about being in that calm and creative state. So you could just give coherent breathing a try and see what you feel inspired to do after you've done a few minutes of coherent breathing. And finally, turning on your creative brain can be as simple as actually doing something creative. It could be simply doing some colouring or something like doodling or zentangling. It could be anything else that you find creative. That could be cooking, that could be working with Fimo or clay, it could be sewing or knitting, anything at all. You can start in a way that perhaps is quite basic and then allow yourself to be creative around that. See where it takes you playfully and find your inspiration. And speaking of inspiration, a lack of feeling inspired is the third reason that you may think that you're bored. One reason that can underlie this is if you have just finished something, completed a project, and you're kind of in that slump when you haven't yet come on to something else. One way that you can help yourself with that is to take some time to celebrate the thing that you have achieved. And that could be going out with friends to celebrate it, or it could be a celebration that you organize for yourself. Perhaps doing a little ritual to congratulate yourself, or also a visualization. You could imagine a ticker parade being thrown for you and the success with whatever it is that you've just done. When you have celebrated a success, it gives it a feeling of completion so that you're ready to take the next step into something new. It might also be that stress or depression are blocking you from reaching that creative place where you will be able to find your inspiration and start doing something that you enjoy. Tapping or havening to remove the source of stress, to release the feelings of stress, because you may not be able to stop things in your life being stressful. However, you can affect your emotional experience of that stress. And that can be a great thing to do in order to be able to connect again with your passion for things in your life, things that you would like to do, things that inspire you, things that feel good to you. One breathing technique that I recommend here to help you find your inspiration is Kapalabhati, sometimes known as shining skull breathing. It's a very energizing and activating form of breath, and so that can help you to get out of a slump to be a bit more invigorated and enlivened. As with the procrastination, tapping into creativity in any way can also help you out of that slump. It may not be doing the thing that eventually you're going to want to do. However, just making a start on something will help you to get back into that more inspired mindset. Another thing that you can do is some form of hypno-visualization, a guided meditation, perhaps remembering a time when you did feel inspired. When you connect with that feeling of inspiration, you allow it to start blooming again from within you, and that's always a great thing. And another potential solution to just not feeling it is to tap. Once again, you could use something like, right now, I'm not feeling inspired. I'm feeling a little bit, and say how you're feeling. And I want to connect again with my passion, to connect again with my creativity. Saying something like this while tapping on your acupressure points helps to acknowledge what the problem is and then move you out and away from it so that you can start to feel inspired again, feel passionate again, and move forward. I'm curious to know whether you connected with one of these underlying factors that we sometimes lump under the umbrella of I'm feeling bored. Is your boredom more loneliness related, more procrastination, or a lack of inspiration? Or is it something else? I'd love to hear. And look out for the next video in this series, where I'll be exploring more of the emotions that underlie emotional eating. And the next one on our list is anger.